Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy Gardening. Today, I thought of harvesting my tomatoes. I need to be cutting them; they are too ripen. So, I wanted to share with you on my tomatoes, on how I grew, and share some important techniques with you before I cut them off from these. This is a good year, indeed. Like last year, it was different, and this year I have very small space for tomatoes, but still I had a good. I think I'm going to have a big harvest even this year. So I'm going to share that with you. First of all, I have to start this tomato seeds indoors around January. Around January, I start indoors because, as you all know, I live in the area, Pacific Northwest, where we have a shorter growing season, like say about 3 months. So June is when I can plant the harvest. I mean, plant the tomatoes outside. So I have like about June, July, August, and September mid. The rain comes and the tomato starts to break open and they don't ripe and other things. So 3 to 3.5 months is my best growing season, and it starts to ripen from August onwards for me. So for this, about a month growth, about month or little over a month growth, month harvest, I would be seeding these in around January indoors. I would seed them and have them germinate and put them in little pots, and then transplant them outdoors around the end of May. Until then, I have to train them up like babies. I have to take them in and out and train them sometime for the outdoor sun and the weather, and then I would be transplanting them finally mid May to late May. That's when I do, and this gives me the harvest. This I started harvesting, I think, this September, so just started with September. So for a week or 10 days is when they started ripening, so maybe 2 weeks benefit of doubt I give two. So mid of August is when they started to give me fruits. I've been growing June, July, 2.5 months this was growing outside for me to get these fruits. So first step is grow indoors. If your season is small, grow indoors, so expand the season. That's the tip number one. That's from my experience. The other thing is, when we come and transplant, it should definitely be end of May or around end of May, or some people say beginning of June. The thing is, these, since the tomato is tropical, you'll have to wait. So that when we are trying to bring and transplant outdoors, there should be some preparatory work. So before transplanting, keep the soil warm. If I'm going to transplant it in around May, say, or late May, mid to late May, I would be covering my soil anyways, even during the frost. So January, Feb, in the month of Feb, at least, I would start covering all my beds. So they kind of like get used to and warm up a little bit. Sometimes I even try to cover over winter, during the winter, to suppress any weeds. So minimum, we need to cover at least a few weeks before transplanting the soil, so the soil becomes it retains becomes and retains some warmth, getting from the daytime sun. And that's the number one. This we could do by using some black sheet spreading. That could also be called a sheet mulching. So just spread the black sheet across, and just cover the soil. The black color absorbs the sun more and retains the sun more. That passes on to the soil, and so it helps to add the warmth better than any other color. So black sheet mulching is preferred. Otherwise, if we don't prefer, I have some cardboards like the Amazon, some packs. So I would spread those papers here, or just even the plain papers, or anything to cover the soil. Covering the soil before planting is the thumb rule for a good growing. About the sheet mulching that we talked about, we could cover the sheet, and as long as we don't turn them into the soil and just remove them around or after the harvest, that's good enough for even for organic composting. That's certified as organic composting, as long as we do not turn the plastic into the soil. So some of us may have questions as if or if not I should use the plastic. Yes, we can, Just that be careful that do not turn them onto the soil. Remove the sheet mulch. When I say remove, it could happen at two times. One is like during planting, just before planting, we could remove the black sheet mulching and then dig and plant the plants, whatever it is. Or you could also poke some holes into that and then dig some holes and then dig the soil and transplant your seedlings this way as well. So this prevents any weed growth. The next important thing that we need to be aware of is the soil acidity to grow the tomatoes. We all know that blueberries love acid soil, whereas the tomatoes also do. They're not that much acid loving plants, but they do. 6.2 to 6.5. This range is good enough for tomatoes. From 7 and above becomes alkaline. So, which tomatoes do not yield good. So you have to check on the soil acidity. We have a soil acidified check at Amazon. I would provide the link down below in the description. So we should be able to check the soil acidity as and they grow. And to increase the soil acidity, we could add anything that's related to sulfur. We have a couple of products at two different diversions, so we could check and do, or just I simply use the blueberry soil acidifier for the tomatoes a little bit if they are much below. If they are 6.5 is okay. Please do not cross that as well. So don't go too low as well, because at every basically why we look for pH level is that at different levels of pH, the different levels of nutrients and different types of nutrients are observed. So they are not the although we provide the macro and micronutrients, not all nutrients are absorbed by the plants at the same level. You provide calcium, they do not take calcium. Why? The reasons differ. So that's where we need to be aware of the pH levels as well. So maintain the pH between 6.2 and 6.5 for a better growth of the tomatoes and better yield of the tomatoes. The other point that we need to know is feed the soil before planting. Before transplanting, just feed the soil. The soil should be loose, and add the macronutrients, NPK. The nitrogen is initially needed, but gradually we need to provide more phosphorus oriented fertilizers, because we don't need to be I don't need to grow foliage. I don't want to grow foliage, whereas I want to grow fruits. So provide just adjust the ratio between your nitrogen and phosphorus and provide more phosphorus rich fertilizers. Frankly, I put my compost. I do my free fertilizer. I have my homegrown compost, and I just feed the compost. If I cannot feed, I just grind my whatever the kitchen waste and pour them in. That's all. So I do not go for any specific fertilizer, but I just use whatever I have, and that's my free fertilizer. One more thing we could do, or people commonly do, and I have tried myself, is that before transplanting, when we dig the soil, I put egg or fish or any meat residues from the kitchen, just dump them in, enrich the soil, then cover it up, then cover with a grow soil, and then plant your transplants. Then they have the food already when they are coming into the soil. That is the best way to feed the tomatoes. The next care is needed when we transplant. So actually, in order to show this to you, I was trying to take a plant out that has not grown that much, but I think this is a small twig that I took off and then I planted, and this is like small things are coming out. So this is not a good transplant to show you, but something that I wanted to have to show this to you. So when we transplant this, dig deep, because as we see here, the tomatoes have like some hairy structures all over. All these places can give new roots. So in order for the big plants to get more food, they need to have more root. So dig them deep. How much ever deep, the more deep the better. Or if we cannot go that depth, we could even do horizontal, something like this. So it could go horizontal, so the roots could develop all over this place. That's the goal. So the more the roots, the more the richness, the more the yield. So grow deep, plant deep, plant horizontal. The other important thing is install the plant support before transplanting, because when we do the transplanting and then if we do the plant support could be like these long sticks or any other things at the back that I would show you. But before any sort of plant support, if we are going to transplant, then there are good chances that the roots would be affected. So better fix these things before doing your transplant. That's the one. Then the other thing is, immediately after planting, feed them with both water and nutrients. Yeah, if we have added already some egg and fish or some kind of protein fish meal or any of those, then it's not much needed, but it's good to keep feeding the tomato plants for a better growth. And again, less of nitrogen as they grow and more of phosphorus. Keep one, although we do the plant support initially, we have to keep tying. So keep that would be in a separate video because it's going in more detail. But when you have a plant support vertical growth, keep tying the plants, keep tying the plant as they grow, because tomato are nothing but a stronger different type of vine, so that would definitely need support, otherwise they would be on the ground and they would go waste. So keep focusing on the staking as they grow throughout the growth. Even a week of gap would be longer commonly during the growth season. Keep removing the weeds as they grow, as the plants grow. Like, the ground should be clear so the weeds do not compete for the food resources. See, like, I'm trying to keep it clean, but we may need to do this every day or every couple of days, kind of. Just pull out the weeds. When we grow the tomatoes, I prefer vertical gardening. I prefer vertical. That's again my personal choice. Oopsie, some bird or something is taken. Oh no, that's the nature probably. So basically, as you see here, I have stacked the tomato plants. Like, I mean, I've tied the tomato plants all through their growth, and also I've removed the foliage. As I talked earlier, I don't want to grow foliage, I want to grow the tomatoes. So I've been removing the foliages, but it's been like couple of weeks, so there are something, I mean a week, so some thing has grown. So just keep tying, and I like to grow vertically. My vertical, the height is not enough, I know. Again, like so next year I would be adding up to the height, or you can have like different stakes. Like, we could go for this ones, the vertical, like these ones, or I could go for like some trellis like thing. So it's up to the individual. And again, pruning is one other important thing. Pruning is again up to the individual. Most people believe in growing single stem or two stems from the root, but for me, I believe in growing as much as possible, as long as I could tie them up neat and clean with the proper airflow, provided I have dig deep and horizontal. So as long as the food is enough, I feel the food is enough, I grow them. I do not prune too much. I do prune. I do prune, say I would prune 25% or 30%, but not totally. And as you see, one other important thing here is, do not have any growth from the ground. The ground stays clear, so this allows the free air circulation and light inside. So this help reduces some insects or the tomato hornworms, all these things. There should be less foliage, means less disease. Also, more sun and air passing to the plants would also help avoid the diseases and help the good growth. The last thing I would focus on is watering. I would be watering the tomatoes regularly until late towards the harvest season. Like, I would be watering regularly until I pull the plants out. I would be watering. Maybe some people say towards the end of the season do not water. Yes, maybe I would reduce towards the end, but otherwise throughout the growing season, water. Keep watering the plants, because tomatoes as such, they retain water. They are rich in water and they need more water. So keep watering the plants. Do not let them dry. And the point to be noted while watering is, do not splash. Please do not splash the water. Water the roots and not the leaves. Let the leaves be dry, so the hornworms or other bugs do not get attracted towards the wet or damp leaves. So just water the roots, not the leaves. Happy gardening.